You're awake right now, you're not dead, and you haven't gone to hell, said Rachel Maddow, former host on CNN, following the 2016 election. Ladies and gentlemen, people are angry about politics. Donald Trump had similar words following the 2020 election. Quote, "You're not going to have a country anymore." Late night host Jimmy Kimmel cried on stage following the 2024 election. Quote, "It was a terrible night for women and children, for democracy and decency." Unquote. Here, Rachel Maddow, Donald Trump, and Jimmy Kimmel made sensational claims. But they didn't make these claims to solve a problem. Instead, they wanted to create drama, and they achieved it by displaying shock and anger to the cameras. This is called false outrage. Even though false outrage is designed for the cameras, it influences others. Actually, it doesn't just influence them. It infects them. False outrage is a disease, and to cure this disease, we must decide that anger is not the solution to problems. So today, we'll start by diagnosing this disease of false outrage in our culture, move on to its symptoms, and conclude with the cure. If our culture could walk into a doctor's office, it would come away with a severe diagnosis of false outrage. So, what's the difference between true and false outrage? True outrage wants what is right. It only seeks to achieve good. False outrage wants to be seen. An excellent example of this is in George Orwell's dystopian novel 1984, where the communist regime mandates a daily practice known as the 2 minutes of hate. Every day, the citizens gather in front of their TVs and scream in outrage as images of their capitalist enemies flicker by. This is an excellent example of false outrage. The citizens achieved nothing with their anger. False outrage like this is all over the internet today. As a study in Science magazine by Killian McLaughlin and her colleagues found, quote, "Social media posts that express outrage are liked and shared more, training users to express more outrage and ranking algorithms to amplify it." Unquote. For example, Benny Johnson, a conservative podcaster, uses false outrage to attract views. Nearly all of his videos feature AI-generated images of angry or screaming politicians. In one, for example, Donald Trump in Eskimo clothing screams, along with Vladimir Putin. This doesn't make any sense. But Benny Johnson has 15 million followers. Unfortunately, false outrage doesn't just stay online. It's also spreading in the real world. The Foundation for Individual Rights and Expression, a free speech organization, points out that, quote, "This year, more than 68% of students said that shouting down a speaker is at least rarely acceptable." Unquote. The report noted that 68% is a record high. More students than ever before are willing to use outrage to end conversation. This happens all around us. 3 years ago, my grandparents and I went to the March for Life in Washington, D.C. While we were there, when the march ended, I decided to keep my poster as a souvenir. A woman saw me carrying my poster, though, walked over to me and started yelling at me. She was angry that I had participated in the march. But her outrage achieved nothing. Online and in person, false outrage is spreading across our culture. Now that we've diagnosed our culture with false outrage, let's move on to the symptoms. False outrage causes us to have angry conversations, and to believe that our anger makes us good people. As writers for The Minimalist, a blog that encourages simple living, put it, quote, "We've all gotten offended without asking ourselves why. and then used our fake judgment, our fake anger to cast judgment on others. It helps us feel better. Unquote. When we pretend to be outraged, we don't have to reason through our beliefs. Piers Morgan, the British host of a political show with 4 million followers, uses false outrage to avoid hard questions. In a 2017 interview, when a guest questioned Piers' stance on gun policy, Piers responded, quote, "How dare you?" his face tightening for the camera. When his guest responded, "Well, Piers, you can keep saying that, but my point still stands." Quote, "Again, how dare you?" said Piers Morgan. Nothing Piers Morgan said advanced the debate. Instead, he uses outrage to shield himself, because outrage is easier than analysis. False outrage is like hiding under the bed during hide and seek. It might hide you well, but it's a terrible place to be. Performative outrage is a terrible place to be. Humans express false outrage because it makes us feel like better people. Psychologist Joshua Grubbs found in a 2019 study that public figures express outrage in order to receive applause from their audience, in what he terms moral grandstanding. When public figures condemn some far-off event, they receive praise for their bravery and courage. Stephen Colbert, another late-night host, has done exactly that. After Donald Trump held a rally at Madison Square Garden in New York City, Stephen Colbert responded on his show saying, "But I'm sure it's just a coincidence, but in 1939, they held a pro-Nazi rally there." Unquote. With this remark, Colbert insinuated that Trump is pro-Nazi. Having created a straw man out of Trump, an evil Nazi, Colbert spared no words, swearing at him live on national television. His statements make sense within a worldview that treats outrage as virtuous. Author Glenn Beck describes the human effect of false outrage in his book, Addicted to Outrage. Quote, "It replaces our genuine humanity with an outwardly facing caricature of a virtuous human being wrapped around a rotting corpse." Unquote. Well, this worldview has morality backwards. False outrage replaces good deeds with outraged words. The culture embraces false outrage. Politicians and media figures promote it. They don't deserve all the blame, but their worldview does deserve the blame. Their worldview is false. Fake outrage is not a virtue. Moral grandstanding is not a good deed. This confusion has eroded the genuine compassion of millions and transformed it into outrage. But I wouldn't have accomplished anything if I told you to be outraged at false outrage. That would be a terrible cure to this sickness. I used to be addicted to outrage. I was angry at every news story. I debated every little detail. Thankfully, I was convicted after reading Glenn Beck's book, Addicted to Outrage. I realized what I had been doing. Colossians 3 verse 2 says, quote, "Set your mind on things above, not on earthly things." I made a pledge to stop being outraged at earthly things. Imagine if everyone stopped practicing false outrage. If we stopped being so angry, calmly discussed difficult questions, and stopped believing that our outrage makes us good people. That world is only possible if you help build it. To take a quote from Darth Vader completely out of context, quote, "With our combined strength, we can end this destructive conflict and bring order to the galaxy." We've diagnosed our culture with false outrage, discussed the symptoms, and seen the cure. You won't make the world a better place by being angry. Focus on something higher than the next controversy. You have a whole life to live, so don't waste it being angry.